I want to just ask all of you in the audience, and for some of you, this will not be difficult. I want you to go back to 2019. I want you to imagine that you're a beef farmer who loves what they do, or really passionate about their animals and the way that you produce food. However, every time you open a newspaper or turn on the television, you're met with headlines like these: that your products should be banned, that they're destroying the environment, and they're bad for human health, that there are better alternatives, and that we need to take action now. So this began my Nuffield journey to try and find a solution to see, is there a future for me to continue farming the way that I have done and generations have done before me? So I think we can all agree that technology has changed the way that we live. It changed the way that we shop. It's changed the way that we drive. It's changed the way that many of us are trying to date. And food technology companies have a similar vision to change the way that we eat. They're developing alternative protein products that can be made from plant-based or animal cell-based products, which are fermented and are made to mimic traditional meat products. One such company I visited was called V2 Foods in Australia. And V2 Foods claim that the current model of food production is broken, and they offer a better version too. They have developed a range of soya-based burgers, mince, schnitzel, targeted not only to vegans and vegetarians, but also to the ethical meat eater. In conjunction with Hungry Jack's, a large fast food chain in Australia, they developed the Rebel Whopper, which saw Hungry Jack's see an increase of 50% in sales of vegetarian goods. V2 have been very successful in marketing their products and making things look different on the shelf. However, that success hasn't been replicated by all alternative protein companies. Some have seen a real stall in sales. Some have decided to exit the market altogether. Beyond Meat, one of the major companies that I was reading about in 2019, had a market value of $14 billion. Today, they're worth just $750 million. Or Impossible Foods and the giants of McDonald's co-developed the McPlant burger, which has since been discontinued after in trials it was only selling 20 patties per day in the San Francisco Bay Area, which would have a large population of vegans and vegetarians. So why have these products failed? They were heralded to us in the early days as being a healthier alternative to meat, but since we've learned that they're ultra-processed and not as healthy as we were once led to believe, that they're not maybe the solution to save the planet, and that one of the challenges are that they just haven't delivered on taste and quality as what we would expect as traditional meat eaters. So while plant-based alternatives undoubtedly face serious challenges, the current slowdown in growth does not mean that they are no longer a threat. But the industry should look closely at the consumer concerns. So why have consumers decided to move away from meat? What factors attracted them to these products initially? And AHDB have done some really valuable work in this area, looking at what consumers across the UK want out of meat production and why they have concerns around buying it. And my study really pivoted at this time to try and see, well, what are the solutions that we can offer? One of the consumers' major concerns around traditional meat production is animal welfare. And in one of my first visits in Australia in March 2020 was to Rowan McMoney's, the CEO of Australian Eggs. And when Rowan took on the role, he faced a great challenge. Only 20% of the Australian population supported the caged egg industry. So Rowan and his team developed a strategy to tell the truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly. He had the policy that it's in the practices that we try to hide are those that we'll be punished for as an industry. So they developed a consumer report. They audited their industry to look at their strengths and their weaknesses and create an action plan to address those weaknesses. And it's been extremely successful, with a 53% increase in approval rates and 70% of the Australian population believing that the industry was willing to do what it takes to meet consumer concerns. Another excellent visit was to Kim Rounds of Five Rivers Cattle in Colorado. Five Rivers are the largest cattle producers in the world. They have 12 feedlots, and they're fattening over 2 million cattle per year. And to put this into context, that's the similar number of animals that are finished in the island of Ireland each year. They had a policy of trying to show consumers what actually happened in feedlots. On social media and in different campaigns, they bring consumers into the feedlot, show them how they're producing animals, show them the skills and the husbandry levels that their staff had to improve welfare on farm. And this is something that really challenged me as a UK beef farmer and producer. I thought, going into a feedlot, our standards are better. But when I compared the conditions of those cattle in Colorado to my own cattle in a slatted barn in Northern Ireland, I believe the consumer would have preferred the feedlot model, despite the numbers that were there. In the recent years, we've been encouraged to eat less meat, but better quality. But how do we define meat quality? To different people, this means different things. I spoke to every meeting I had throughout my Nuffield travels, I asked this question, and some preferred grain-fed to grass-fed. Some wanted highly marbled, some wanted lean. Did you want it to be organic or even Red Tractor approved? This is a real challenge for the UK beef industry. 1 in 6 beef eating experiences in the UK is negative. And when that consumer has a negative experience, they won't buy that product again for a number of weeks. The US and Australia have done a lot of work to try and address these consumer concerns. They've developed meat quality grading systems which reward producers to grow beef that meets the demands of the market. They're paying their producers to produce tender beef with high marbling. And this is driving sales both domestically and internationally in these countries, because customers can be sure of the product that they're going to get and have confidence that they will enjoy that experience. The environment is one of the major hurdles that beef production has to try and overcome. And I didn't need to travel very far from home to find some really innovative solutions. And I met with Teagasc in the Republic of Ireland to see some of the work that they're doing, looking at feed additives to try and reduce methane emissions. Their work on genetics in dairy beef, which shown that they could have up to 10% reduction on greenhouse gas emissions compared to their traditional suckler counterparts. In both the US and in Ireland, they had a focus on trying to drive efficiency and reduce the age to slaughter. If we can reduce our age of slaughter by 4 months, we can reduce our total greenhouse gas emissions by up to 20%. I met with Leachman Cattle of Colorado as well, and they had a real drive and a focus to produce genetics that fit the US feedlot system. But they realized that it was important that animals only spend 4 to 6 months of their lives in a feedlot, and they need to produce for the rancher as well. And these animals needed to be sensitive to the landscape and the environment that they were grown in. So I think it's important as an industry that we don't just focus on climate change and greenhouse gas emissions, that we need to look at the wider environment and biodiversity goals as well. So, do I see a future to continue farming the way that I and generations have done before? I think we do have a future, but to be successful, that we should adopt some of these practices from other countries. We should adopt a meat quality grading system that is targeted to our consumer demands in the UK, that we can see steak sales soar because beef is tastier than ever. That we need to look at efficiency within our beef production system. We need to look at some of these new technologies and drive efficiency to reduce the age of slaughter, that we can make claims on reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. And finally, we need to make a welfare strategy. We need to assess the current state of farming in the UK. We need to look at different practices. We need to look at the strengths. We need to look at the weaknesses and make that action plan to show consumers what we're willing to do to be successful. And I believe that if we bring these things together, we can ensure that beef will stay on the menu as we go forward. So I'd just like to take my last minute to just say thank you to you for your attention this afternoon, to Nuffield for the last 4 years and the experiences that it's given me, the people that it's allowed me to meet around the world, and the people that are in this room who've inspired me and helped me to develop skills. The opportunities not only to visit farms, but to see the Rocky Mountain National Park, to visit friends in San Francisco that I went to high school with who have immigrated. It's really helped develop me as a person, and I just am really indebted to Nuffield, and in particular to the Thomas Henry Foundation for sponsoring my scholarship. And I really do want to thank my family as well, who without I couldn't have achieved all of this and to have the farm at home. And one of the big benefits that also came from Nuffield was that my dad and I done a swap, and he went to Australia for a month this year to do a little bit of his own travel and learning. So yeah, thank you very much for your attention this afternoon.